Do you want to just introduce yourself for a minute?
Sure. My name is Loy Brunson. I'm single. I'm almost 62 years old. In 1977, I returned home from my mission, but before that, I had a mission president that made it against the rules to go tracting because he said it was a waste of time. So he instilled in us a desire to create ways to leverage our time, leverage our abilities. And since my mission, well, actually, when I got off the plane, my three brothers met me there with their trumpets and convinced me to join the Brunson brothers. And I thought, what a great way to do missionary work, spread the truth with music with the sound of a trump. And so that turned into 150 national television shows, including The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, 3 appearances, counting reruns, cover of the Disney Channel magazine, and had great experience there. And then I made the mistake by watching Fox News one too many times where they mentioned the Constitution, and I started reading the Constitution, read the President's oath after seeing President Obama say that it was, to the world, that it was fundamentally flawed. And I read his oath in the Constitution. You have to read it and see it, and that changed my life. And since then, I've been studying the Constitution, and I've discovered discoveries that have never been published before, and I didn't believe I'd really done this until Ronald Reagan's former assistant, who was chief deputy of the bicentennial celebration of the Constitution, told me that my discoveries were, in fact, real, and you can go to 7discoveries.com and see that. Did I take too long?
It's okay.
You can deduct my time.
Okay. Okay. Do you think the government should mandate how private organizations can choose or elect those that represent their organization?
Well, who cares what I think or what any U.S. senator thinks? My job description as a U.S. Senator is the oath of office to the Constitution. The 6th article of the Constitution demands that I take an oath, that I swear an oath, and not only swear an oath, but I need to sign my oath, subscribe the oath. Article 1, Section 8 is the enumerated powers of the Congress. If it's not in Article 1, Section 8, we don't have the power to do it. But unfortunately, even our state representatives think that if it's not restricted within the Constitution, then they can go right ahead and do it. So let's take a look at Article 1, Section 8, and if that has the power to do that, then we can do it, and it does not.
Thank you. What do you think are reasonable gun restrictions?
Well, it's a Second Amendment question, and that's the most... How many people have actually read the Second Amendment? It's like the other question about the separation of church and state. The First Amendment, let's read it, and it's very clear. The Second Amendment is not just about arms, it's about education. There's a militia clause in Article 1, Section 8, giving the Congress the power to raise funds to not only discipline the militia, which is education, but to arm the militia. And who's the militia? Every able-bodied citizen that wants to join the militia. And what is the purpose for this? It is to execute the laws of the Union. What is the laws of the Union? It is the Constitution of the United States. So maybe we ought to just take maybe we ought to just start educating everyone correctly, according to that. In our schools. Next question coming up.
Okay, what is the proper role of government?
Again, it's Article 1, Section 8. This is a government for the people and by the people. If it's not enumerated within Article 1, Section 8, or the first article or the third article, the judicial branch, the executive branch, then they do not have the power to do it. The purpose for the government is to honor their oath of office, to support and defend, protect the Constitution, which purpose is to protect our God-given unalienable rights, which are, you can't enumerate all of them.
What is your stand on the Constitutional Convention?
Well, an Article 5 convention is lawful under the Constitution, but this is about the debt ceiling. This is about a budget amendment. And we already have the Constitution that defines and limits government spending. So we already have that in place. I think the Article 5 convention having to do with a budget, mandatory budget amendment, I think it's just an example of our ignorance to the Constitution, because the Constitution contains all that.
Under what circumstances would you vote to raise taxes?
Vote to raise taxes? Well, the name of my book, it's a Constitution booklet. It's called 7 Discoveries Everyone Should Know in the U.S. Constitution. It makes all other Constitution booklets obsolete. And if we understand where money comes from, money is created out of thin air, but it's not created and owned by our government. It's created by the central banking organization called the Federal Reserve System, and every $1 trillion that is created and loaned to Congress is pure profit before interest for central bankers. That money needs and assets need to be confiscated, given back to the Treasury. People need to have their income taxes returned and other violated taxes returned to them. We need to get to a constitutional spending program, let our government create money out of thin air instead of the Federal Reserve, controlled by the Constitution, backed by our property, and we don't need any taxation whatsoever.
Thank you. Where do you stand on the Department of Education?
There we go. Let's make it about, let's change the curriculum to the militia, to the education of the Constitution. Then maybe, it's about curriculum. Then we could probably find constitutional ways to fund that. But other than that, I don't think so.
Thank you. What do you think of the separation between church and state?
Well, let's read the First Amendment again. There are no words. I've seen famous people on television interviewing people about this, and they say the separation of church and state in the Constitution. Those words do not exist in the Constitution. They don't exist in the First Amendment.
You're quick. Okay. What do you think is the impact of illegal immigration on the workforce, healthcare, and our educational system here in Utah and in our county?
Well, it's not just those things that have already been mentioned by previous candidates, but it sends a message that the rule of law, that the Constitution is irrelevant. And I think that's just as dangerous. We need to follow the rule of law. If we can't take the oath of office seriously, then we shouldn't go back to Washington, D.C. The sixth article of the Constitution demands that we take a binding oath. If there's no penalty to the oath of office, it's not a binding oath. I produced, with my film crew, my brother, in 2010, I think it was, a documentary video called The Oath of Office, the thread by which the Constitution hangs. And we interviewed Mike Lee and other Senate candidates, and we asked them, what's the penalty for violating the oath of office? And the answer was disturbing. Senator Mike Lee, who's a great senator, I like Mike Lee, he said, you lose the election. I asked Senator Hatch, same answer, you lose the election. That's not a binding oath. They are taking a false oath. They are taking an unconstitutional oath because it is not binding. California has a law where they've changed perjury laws to coincide with the oath of office. So if you violate your oath of office, you can't be charged with perjury. They actually specifically said that their perjury laws do not pertain to the oath of office. It's disgusting.
How would you vote on a filibuster for appropriations?
Appropriations, then again, money. The government does not need to take our money, and I think a filibuster should be used in every possible way to force our representatives to live up to their oath.
Thanks. What is the maximum number of terms you plan to run for?
I don't even want to run for this one. I would, if some crazy miracle happened and I actually won this race, I would want to replace myself with someone better as soon as possible.
Would you support legislation that provides special protections to specific segment of society?
Yeah, the NRA. No, I'm just joking. Of course not. We go back to Article 1, Section 8. If the power isn't there, if the permission isn't there, can you imagine coming home from a trip and your children have created a bonfire in your basement? Or a swimming pool when you don't have an indoor swimming pool? And they say, well, but Mom, it's not on the list of what we can't do on the fridge. Well, that's our Congress. We've got a flood going on there. And unfortunately, the flood is uncontrollable, and we're sending representatives with sponges. We need to send someone back there with a valve. We've got to shut the damn water valve off and not just send people with sponges, because that will never end. We have a debt-based currency. No matter how successful, no matter how prosperous we are in this country, as the population grows and the economy grows, we have to borrow money into existence from the central bankers. That's insanity. That's crazy. I asked Congressman Allen West, I says, hey, you're a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. When a $100 bill is printed, it costs about 15 cents in paper and ink. That's $99.85 profit. Whose profit is it? And what an honest man. He gave me a terrific, honest answer. He said, I don't know. And that's our representatives in Washington, D.C. They don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm sorry, no matter how good they are. He's a great man.
Okay, thank you. That's all our questions. If you want to take a second, you're welcome to give them if you have a website or
Sure, you can go to 7discoveries.com. I am launching a magazine that'll be the most widely distributed magazine in the world, 137 million. I'm working with a newspaper agency. They distribute that Hometown Value magazine full of coupons, 500,000. That's half as many as the largest distributed magazine in the US. This is going to go to 137 million homes in 2019, homes and businesses paid for by sponsors that get to put their free coupons in the back of it. And this will be the largest distributed magazine in the world containing the Constitution and some of these concepts to help us get excited and wake up about the crazy nonsense that's going on in Washington, D.C. Thank you.